The bride reveals shocking estate secrets after being excluded from the wedding will reading. The heavy oak door creaked open, biting cold air rushing in from the sprawling grounds of Ashford Manor. Emily's breath hitched as she stepped inside. The walls, draped with centuries of family portraits, seemed to stare down, their painted eyes flickering with silent judgment under the dim chandelier's flicker. It was late afternoon. Autumn sinking into every corner. Orange leaves swirled like restless ghosts outside. This vast estate held more than just wealth. It pulsed with secrets deep enough to drown in. Emily was glowing with hope just hours before, newly married, ready to join the Ashford lineage. But now her stomach was a twisted mess of cold dread and disbelief. She had been left out of the will reading, the one moment she thought would solidify her place in this grand family. Instead, she stood frozen beside the velvet curtains, the thick carpet muffling her shaking steps as faces, some kind, many taut with disdain. But it was Uncle James who caught her breath. He sat like a carved statue, gray eyes narrow under furrowed brows, his lips pressed so tight they almost vanished. There was a venom beneath his calm, the kind that promised storms. Everyone else avoided meeting his gaze. He seemed, somehow, untouchable. The family solicitor's voice cut harshly through the silence. As per my late brother's instructions, Emily, you are not entitled. Emily's chest clenched fiercely. The words hit like a slap, uncalled for, brutal. Her hands trembled. A lump stuck in her throat as the room's gossip-fed tension wrapped tighter, humming with concealed hostility. Then came the flutter, a ripped page misplaced on the floor, a whispered accusation about old debts, rumors of scandal and betrayal tangled within the family tree. Emily's mind raced. What was James hiding? The flicker in his eyes suggested more than mere control. It hinted at desperate measures, too. She caught a glimpse of a seal's envelope shoved hastily into his pocket, a secret locked away in leather and ink. Suddenly, the grand hall felt like a cage. The whispers morphed into chilling warnings, small threats barely masked behind polite nods. Emily's pulse hammered. The cold trickled beneath her skin, mingling with fierce resolve. She wasn't just a visitor here. She was family, and someone was scared of what she might uncover. Outside, the wind howled through ancient branches like a warning. Inside, the family's glittering surface cracked, revealing a rotting core. Emily's eyes burned with determination. How far would she go to claim her rightful place? And what horrors lurked beneath those timeless walls? Her heart pounded. Trust was a fragile, shattering thing. The truth, if she found it, might save her or destroy everything. No one was safe from the shadows lurking in Ashford Manor. Not even her. Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're there, leave that powerful like. That helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know each incredible person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. The air inside Ashford Manor felt heavier now, like breathing through wet cloth. Emily's fingers clenched the edge of a heavy velvet curtain, knuckles white, heart pounding hard enough to drown out the low buzz of whispered voices. Her eyes never left Uncle James, that cold S. Heads snapped up. Conversation stopped. The silence was thick and sharp. Emily spun toward the grand staircase. The room's large eyes, the painted portraits, seemed to lean in, hanging on the moment. Uncle James was the first to move. His chair scraped back sharply. "No," he hissed, voice low but fierce. The family solicitor's face went pale. What on earth? Emily didn't wait. She pushed through the crowd, her steps trembling but quick. The faint sound of breaking glass mixed with hurried footsteps above. The heavy chandelier swayed, casting wild shadows that flickered like ghosts running down the walls. "Stay here!" Uncle James barked, but his voice sounded weak, scared. Emily's breath caught. She pushed herself upward, her heels clicking against the wooden stairs that groaned under her weight. At the top landing, the hallway stretched out, a dim corridor lined with closed doors. From one room came faint, echoing sobs, broken and desperate. The door was ajar. Emily's hand trembled as she pushed it open. Inside, a scene she would never forget. Her new husband, Mark, pale, face streaked with tears, eyes wild with panic, was clutching a shaking figure on the floor. It was their young nephew, Luke, only 10 years old, trembling with wide, terrified eyes. Blood soaked the cream carpet beneath them, a dark, vivid spill. Emily gasped, stepping inside, heart lurching in her chest. Luke's small hands were pressed over a bleeding wound on his side, crimson spreading fast. Mark's voice was broken, shaking. We didn't mean for it to happen." Behind them stood a figure in the shadow, slumped against the wall. A man she didn't recognize, but felt the cold grip of dread when she saw his face. It was the family lawyer. His eyes were open, but glazed and empty. The slit across his throat was cruel and deep. Emily's knees nearly gave out. The room smelled of iron and fear. The distant banging of heavy doors downstairs, the hurried cries, the quick rush of panic from the family now below, all felt miles away now, frozen in a nightmare. Mark looked up, his face twisted in raw, agonized shame. "Emily, I had to protect the family. You don't know what James is capable of." Her breath hitched. James. It was more than cold control and thin smiles. It was violence. It was blood. Emily's mind reeled. The pieces she'd tried to fit together yesterday, today, they were all wrong. The family she had thought she married into was a damn lie. "Why?" she whispered. Luke's small voice shook. "Uncle James told me to keep quiet, or he'd hurt us all." Emily's chest felt crushed, air ripped out. Tears burned her eyes, but her legs steadied. There was no innocence here, no safety. The whole house was tangled in dark secrets, deeper than she ever guessed. Outside, the wind screamed through the trees like a warning, and inside Ashford Manor, the nightmare was only just waking. Emily's heart hammered. She was either going to drown in this darkness or become the storm. But one thing was clear: nothing would ever be the same. And the real war had just begun. Emily's heart hammered loudly as she focused on Mark's pleading eyes. She had to act. Luke needed her. Blood pooled around the small boy, soaking the carpet crimson, yet the raw wound of betrayal cut deeper than any knife. "Just hold on, Luke," she cried, instinctively diving to the floor next to them. Her hands found the boy's, trembling over the wound. The warm flow felt like fire against her cool skin. "Keep pressure here." She pressed down, willing her strength into him. Mark's eyes darted, scanning the shadows, searching for a way out. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," he whispered, his voice raw. "We were just trying to protect." "Protect?" Her voice cracked, anger spilling over the tight knot of fear in her chest. "You nearly killed him!" But as she turned back to Luke, the boy's fragile strength fought against the tide of doom washing over them. His breathing was shallow, his skin pale. "Aunt Emily, please," he wheezed. "I'm scared." She swallowed hard, fighting the panic rising like bile in her throat. "I know, Luke. You're going to be okay. Just hold on a little longer." A sudden scuffle echoed from the hallway. A figure burst into the doorway, blocking the dim light. It was Uncle James, and he looked furious. "Get away from him!" His voice boomed, filled with fury. The calm mask he wore had shattered, revealing a man driven by rage. "James, he needs help!" Emily shouted, trying to keep her voice steady. "You're talking nonsense, Emily," he spat, rushing forward. "This is all your fault." Then came the shocking twist. Another figure entered behind James. Her heart sank. It was Catherine, Mark's mother. Her face was pale, eyes wild. And Emily had never seen such fury etched across a mother's features. "Stop! This ends now!" she shouted. Her eyes locked onto James, the kind of connection that screamed of history and shared pain. "Catherine, you don't understand," James snapped. "I understand you better than anyone," she retorted, stepping forward, her heels clicking ominously on the floor. "You've always been a monster." Emily felt the air freeze. The tension thickened under the weight of that accusation. "What? What do you mean?" she gasped, glancing back at Mark, who looked as stunned as she felt. In that moment, she caught a glimpse of something flickering in James's eyes. A shadow of fear mixed with anger. It was gone in an instant, replaced by a calculated calm. "This doesn't involve you anymore, Catherine." "You need to stay out of this," he hissed, pointing a finger. "If you don't want it to involve me, you should have kept your secrets locked up." The air crackled between them, filled with the weight of unspoken words. "You think you can play the victim?" He scowled, taking a step closer. "You don't know the half of what's at stake here." Catherine scoffed, shaking her head. "I know more than you think. I was with him before you came along, back when he started." She stopped. A painful pause, hanging in the air. "Started what?" Emily pressed, the words escaping her lips before she could rein them in. But Uncle James's eyes darted to Mark, full of menace. "You want to know secrets? Here's one. Your dear husband was never meant to inherit anything. The family name, the estate, none of it. I planned on cutting him out, and you too, if you ever found out." Emily's mind reeled. Everything she thought she knew twisted painfully into something foreign. Mark clutched Luke tighter, his expression of profound terror igniting as he took in the meaning. "Get away from us, James!" Mark suddenly shouted, rage flaring that lit his features. But James smirked, a chilling expression that made the whole room shift with dread. "You've sealed your fates, all of you." Emily couldn't breathe. The ground shifted under her, and with a sudden crash, the door slammed shut behind James, trapping them in a suffocating silence. Outside, the wind howled louder, lamenting their plight. The shadows in the room shifted, pressing in on them. She wasn't sure what they had awakened in this twisted family graveyard, but one thing was undeniable. Everything was unraveling. "Emily," Luke whimpered, the horror growing in his small voice as he looked up at her. Time froze. There was something deeper, darker, that they had yet to uncover, and the shadows lurked closer than ever. What had James unleashed? What did Catherine know? The nightmare wasn't over. It had just begun. Emily's heart raced, a drum echoing in her ears. She struggled to focus as Uncle James's fury mixed with Catherine's wild determination filled the room like a charged storm. Luke's whimpers tugged at her soul. She felt the cold sweat on her brow, the weight of what lay ahead suffocating her with dread. "Stay away from him, James," Emily shouted, the panic lacing her voice. Mark tightened his arms around Luke, his face twisted in anguish. "Protecting? You call this protection?" she pressed, her voice rising. "You're just making it worse." James didn't budge, his eyes growing colder, calculating. "You think you can save them? Look where that's gotten you." His taunt echoed in the heavy air. Suddenly, out of the shadows, a faint sound broke through, the tiny creaking of a door somewhere down the corridor. A shadow moved past the doorway, just a flicker at the edge of her vision. "Did you hear that?" Emily whispered, a chill creeping up her spine. "It's nothing," James dismissed, but the slight tremor in his voice belied his confidence. A soft gasp escaped Mark. "Emily, it's—" But before he could finish, a loud crash erupted. The door at the end of the hall burst open, slamming against the wall. In walked a woman, tall, dressed in black, her eyes gleaming with urgency. Emily blinked, her heart catching. "Miranda!" Mark breathed, his voice a mixture of relief and fear. "Get away from Luke!" she shouted, rushing towards them, her heels clicking fiercely on the floor, echoing like gunshots of desperation. The tension spiked, everyone frozen in disbelief. "Miranda, no!" James's voice dropped like a stone, a growing dread in his gaze. "You don't understand!" Miranda pushed past him, kneeling beside Luke. Her hands hovered, ready to help. "We have to get him out of here, now!" A fire ignited in her eyes, a savagery that made Emily's heart swell with hope. But then, a scream sliced through the air, jagged and raw. All heads turned toward James's office door. They watched, horrified as a figure stumbled out, clutching their throat, a stream of dark red spilling over their hands. It was another one of the family. Emily recognized her. A cousin, Lydia. She fell to the floor, gasping, eyes wide with panic. "Help! He's gone mad!" Lydia cried, her voice choked. Chaos erupted. "What's happening?" Mark yelled, moving to shield Luke from the unfolding horror. "James, what did you do?" Catherine shouted, stepping forward, her face transforming from rage to fear within seconds. James's eyes widened, transformed from lordly arrogance to something darker. "I didn't." Suddenly, from the shadows emerged Jeremy, the family's other lawyer, his face stained with blood, panic coursing through him. "You have to run. He's lost control." Emily felt a sickening realization wash over her. It wasn't just about Luke anymore. It was about survival. "Who is he?" she asked, desperation clawing at her throat. Everybody stood frozen, horror mingling with disbelief. James recoiled, his composure cracking. "You don't know what's at stake, what I've been protecting." But before he could finish, the lights flickered violently, the shadows danced as if alive, and the air buzzed with dread. Then, everything went dark. A loud crash followed, and the lights died, plunging the room into pitch blackness. There was frantic shouting, hands reaching out in blind panic. The pounding of feet echoed like thunder. Emily clutched Luke tighter, a shield against the darkness. Her pulse quickened, and then a deafening silence fell, thicker than fog. A feeling washed over her, a cold brush of fear, like fingers trailing down her spine. She was suddenly aware of presence behind her. A whispered voice cut through the stillness, chilling her to the bone. "You thought you could uncover the truth?" The voice lingered in the air with a mix of familiarity and menace. Reality shattered. Emily turned slowly, dread pooling in her stomach. The shadows rearranged, and there stood a figure, unmistakable and horrifyingly familiar. "Mark," she breathed, the tremor in her voice barely audible. He was smiling, the kind of smile that twists your gut with dread. "Surprise, my love," he said, the warmth in his voice completely gone, replaced by something dark and twisted. The room spun. Everything she believed crashed around her. Now she was left standing in the darkness, facing someone she thought she knew, someone who now felt like a stranger, the true danger lurking closer than ever. And as the cold gripped her heart, she knew the game had flipped. Nothing was as it seemed. Emily's heart raced, a drum echoing in her ears. She struggled to focus as Uncle James's fury, mixed with Catherine's wild determination, filled the room like a charged storm. Luke's whimpers tugged at her soul. She felt the cold sweat on her brow, the weight of what lay ahead suffocating her with dread. "Stay away from him, James!" Emily shouted, panic lacing her voice. Mark tightened his arms around Luke, his face twisted in anguish. "Protecting? You call this protection?" she pressed, her voice rising. "You're just making it worse." James didn't budge, his eyes growing colder, calculating. "You think you can save them? Look where that's gotten you." His taunt echoed in the heavy air. Suddenly, from the shadows, a faint creaking sound broke through. A shadow moved past the doorway, just a flicker at the edge of her vision. "Did you hear that?" Emily whispered, a chill creeping up her spine. "It's nothing," James dismissed, but the slight tremor in his voice belied his confidence. A soft gasp escaped Mark. "Emily, it's—" Before he could finish, the door at the end of the hall burst open, slamming against the wall. In walked a woman, tall, dressed in black. Her eyes gleamed with urgency. Emily blinked, her heart catching. "Miranda!" Mark breathed, relief and fear mixing in his voice. "Get away from Luke!" she shouted, rushing towards them, her heels clicking fiercely on the floor, echoing like gunshots of desperation. The tension spiked. Everyone was frozen in disbelief. "Miranda, no!" James's voice dropped like a stone, dread filling his gaze. "You don't understand." Miranda pushed past him, kneeling beside Luke. Her hands hovered, ready to help. "We have to get him out of here, now!" A fire ignited in her eyes, a savagery that made Emily's heart swell with hope. Then, a piercing scream sliced through the air, jagged and raw. All heads turned toward James's office door. They watched, horrified, as a figure stumbled out, clutching their throat, red spilling over their hands. It was Lydia, another family member. She crumpled to the floor, gasping, eyes wide with panic. "Help! He's gone mad!" Lydia cried. Chaos erupted. "What's happening?" Mark yelled, moving to shield Luke from the unfolding horror. "James, what did you do?" Catherine shouted, stepping forward, her face transforming from rage to fear within moments. James's eyes widened, his composure cracking. "I didn't!" But before he could finish, the lights flickered violently, shadows danced as if alive, and the air buzzed with dread. Then, everything went dark. A loud crash followed, and the lights died, plunging the room into pitch blackness. Frantic shouting erupted. Hands reached out in blind panic. The pounding of feet echoed like thunder. Emily clutched Luke tighter, shaking. Her heart raced. Then a chilling whisper cut through the stillness, freezing her blood. "You thought you could uncover the truth?" The voice carried a mix of familiarity and menace. Reality shattered. Emily turned slowly, dread pooling in her stomach. The shadows rearranged, and there stood a man, unmistakable and horrifyingly familiar. "Mark," she breathed, the tremor in her voice barely audible. He was smiling, the warmth gone, replaced by something dark and twisted. "Surprise." "My love," he said, that smile chilling her to the bone. Time stopped. Everything she believed shattered around her. "Mark, what is happening?" She stumbled over her words, fear gripping her heart. But before he could respond, another figure emerged from the darkness. his voice slicing through with shocked clarity. "You're too late, Emily!" It was Jeremy, the other lawyer, looking unkempt and wide-eyed. "He planned this all along." Mark's demeanor shifted, a flicker of panic crossing his face. "What do you mean?" Emily demanded, a knot forming in her chest. "James is not the only one with secrets. Mark knew." Jeremy's words spilled like poison. Emily staggered back, her mind racing. Knew what? About the inheritance and the bloodline. He's been playing both sides, manipulating everyone. Mark's expression darkened, as if a mask of twisted loyalty fell away. "You're wrong, Jeremy. I did what I had to do." "Had to do?" Emily echoed, betrayal settling like lead in her stomach. "Enough!" James roared, regaining control, but the tension had shifted. Emily stood frozen, her world shattering. What had she married into? All the love, the trust, it crumbled with every revelation. Then, a deafening crash from the staircase. The door burst open, and something monstrous loomed in the entrance. Emily's breath caught. The house sealed their fate, and the darkness clawed closer. An unseen horror swirled in the shadows. There would be no escape now, only reckoning. Emily's breath caught as the figure standing in the dark lifted their head. The room was thick with fear, a chill settling in her bones as Mark's twisted smile faded into an expression of sheer horror. The darkness cloaked the details, but she felt something shift, a change in the air that warned her to brace for impact. "Emily," Mark's voice trembled, glancing between her and the figure, terror mixing with desperation. "You don't want to do this." The shadowy form stepped into a sliver of light, spilling from the hallway, and Emily's heart plummeted. It was her sister, Lily, standing there with wild eyes, blood smudged on her blouse, breathless and shaken. "Lily, what are you doing here?" Emily blurted, confusion flooding her mind. Her sister was supposed to be miles away, far from Ashford Manor and the madness brewing within. "I had to come. I didn't know who else to trust," Lily gasped, her voice thick with fear. "I overheard them plotting. James, Mark, all of them." Shock rippled through the room. Mark's face blanched, and he took a cautious step back. "What are you talking about?" Lily's voice broke, and she trembled. "You're all in danger. They're planning to get rid of you, Emily." "What?" The word slipped from Emily's lips, petrified realization coursing through her. That might explain why the family felt so suffocating and hostile. But in truth, she had trusted Mark, too. "You're lying!" Mark shouted, but the doubt crept into his eyes. "You think we'd hurt her?" "Yes!" Lily shouted back, urgency slicing through the chaos. "You don't see what's happening. It's all part of their plan." "What plan?" Emily urged, stepping closer, eyes locked onto Lily's wide gaze, desperate for answers. Lily faltered, biting her lip as memories flooded in. "They want the estate, the entire Ashford legacy. But it's worse than that," she whispered. Then, from the hallway came another figure, tall and dark, haunting. The air shifted again as they broke through the doorway. It was the family doctor, Dr. Turner. He stood there, eyes glinting, fear clinging to him like a shroud. "It's not just the will," he said, voice strained. "It's about blood. The Ashford family has secrets you wouldn't believe." The room went quiet. All eyes turned toward him. "What do you mean?" Emily demanded, shaking her head in disbelief. "I'm not just the family doctor. I'm also—" he started, but was interrupted by a loud crash from upstairs, causing everyone to jump. "Enough of this!" James's voice boomed through the chaos, his power wavering but not gone. "You're speaking nonsense! No!" Lily shot back, brazen. "You've manipulated everyone. You think you control us all?" Then it happened. A piercing shriek erupted from the upper floor, echoing against the walls. It vibrated through the air, cold and haunting. "Luke!" Emily's heart raced as the reality struck. She turned and bolted toward the staircase, every muscle tensed for a fight. Fear propelled her forward. While behind her, voices erupted into chaos. "Emily, wait!" Mark's voice called, but she didn't stop. She had to get to her nephew. The second she hit the landing, another door swung open. A man, someone she had seen in family meetings, staggered into view, his shirt drenched in blood, eyes wide, mouth agape, as if he had seen the worst nightmare. "Help! They're coming!" he screamed, but it was the look on his face that sent a chill down her spine. Then the shadows shifted, growing longer, deeper, twisting like tendrils reaching for her. And that was when every single memory fell into place. The truths she'd been ignoring, the family ties that felt like shackles, suddenly clicked together, forming a twisted pattern of betrayal and horror. "Emily!" Mark shouted again, panic clear in his voice, creeping up from behind. But it was too late. She turned to the others, heart racing, confusion mixing with adrenaline. There were lies, layered in layers of lies, shadows cast by everyone she had trusted. And in that moment, realization washed over her. It wasn't just about power or legacy. It was survival. The walls of Ashford Manor whispered secrets, with everything she thought she knew beginning to unravel around her. Just as she stepped toward the source of the scream, the lights died again, plunging them all into darkness, leaving one question echoing in the silence. Who would survive when the truth finally came crashing down? Emily's breath hitched as the darkness enveloped them, the air thick with uncertainty and fear. She felt her heart pounding against her ribcage like a frantic drum. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Stay close," Mark said, his tone shaky but firm as he inched toward Lily. "We need to find the others. Can't you see? It's all a trap." Lily cried, fear dripping from her every word. She was trembling, her hands shaking as she gripped the doorframe. "James is not who you think he is." A sudden rush of footsteps echoed from the hallway behind them. Emily spun around. The shadows thickened out there, threatening to spill into their little sanctuary. She could feel the darkness closing in, sharpening the edges of her fear. The footsteps stopped abruptly. Silence fell like a heavy blanket. Then, the unmistakable sound of a scream pierced the air from somewhere deeper in the manor. It was raw, desperate, a sound that clawed at her insides and sent icy fingers down her spine. "Luke!" Emily gasped, her heart racing faster than she thought possible. She lunged towards the staircase once more, but Mark grabbed her arm, his grip firm yet panicked. "Emily, wait!" he barked. "We need to think!" Before she could respond, another door flung open, and a figure appeared, illuminated briefly by the flickering light. It was Jeremy, his face ashen, eyes wide with terror. Everyone, has to get out of here. There's no time." "What's happening?" Emily demanded, panic tightening around her throat. The urgency in Jeremy's voice ripped through the tension, a signal that something worse was on its way. "James, it's all him. He brought something back with him. Something terrible." Jeremy's voice cracked, fear leaking through each word. He thought he could control it. Control what? Mark's face morphed into horror. The room trembled as if in response, the foundations of Ashford Manor shaking. Shadows twisted around them, and a low growl emanated from the walls. And that was when the lights flickered one last time, and then went out completely. Visceral darkness swallowed them whole. Emily's heart thundered as she lost sight of everyone. Then, chaos. "Get back!" shouted a voice that wasn't Mark's. A strange, piercing shriek sliced through the blackness, followed by a terrifying thud. The air filled with the scent of something foul, and a shiver traced the length of Emily's spine. "Emily!" Mark called, panic thrumming in his voice. "Lily, where are you?" "I'm here," Lily's voice broke through, full of fear. But there was another sound now, a slithering noise that wrapped around her, making her skin crawl. The light sparked back on for just a moment, revealing writhing shadows slinking from the corners. Shapes so grotesque, they didn't belong in any world Emily knew. She was transfixed, mouth open. Unable to scream, as an ethereal figure emerged from the darkness, a twisted entity, eyes glowing with malevolence. "Mark!" she screamed, but it wasn't Mark that emerged from the shadows. The one standing in front of her wore a face familiar, yet foreign, a devastated smile painted on lips she had thought she could trust. "Emily," the entity said, but it was Mark's voice, twisted, laced with a hunger she'd never seen before. "You should have never come here." Time stopped as the truth crashed over her. "What are you?" Her voice trembled, barely a whisper. Mark's face shifted, dark shadows swirling around him, wisps of smoke that choked her heart. "I'm your protector," he said slowly, "and your destruction." In that instant, everything shattered. A torrent of revelations brimming with horror flooded her mind. The love she thought she had known was a facade. Each moment they shared now tinged with a sinister depth. Mark was not merely part of this family's dark legacy. He was its orchestrator, intertwining their lives with an ancient evil that craved dominion. "Run!" screamed Lily, cutting through the shock. But Emily couldn't move. She was locked in place, entranced by the monster her husband had become. And as the lights flickered again, she sensed the full scope of the game unfolding before her. Familial ties dissolving into an abyss, each person linked by secrets that would lead to their downfall. That was when she saw it, a glint of silver in the darkness, hidden behind Mark. A dagger, dripping with something ominous. "Mark?" she croaked. "You?" But he lunged forward. The dagger raised high, and Emily could only gasp as the life she knew threatened to unravel in an instant. A heart-stopping moment hung in the air, heavy, suffocating. The dagger glinted menacingly in Mark's hand, its position aimed right at Emily. She felt her heart stop, the room spinning around her. Her breath came in shallow gasps, and everything she believed teetered on the edge of that blade. "Mark, please," she whispered, trembling. "Don't do this." But the shadow of the man she loved had morphed into something unrecognizable. He drew closer, eyes hollow and filled with something dark. "You should have never come here. You've ruined everything. Stop! We can fix this!" she urged, the desperation creeping into her voice. But he only smiled, a twisted, cruel smile that sent chills radiating through her core. The air thickened with tension. It felt as if the walls could close in at any moment. She glanced sideways. Lily was still there, eyes wide with horror, frozen in disbelief. "Mark, you know him. He's not a monster," she shouted, trying to reach him. "Is that so?" Mark sneered, chucking his head towards her, the knife poised like a predator. "You think I care what she says?" As he lunged, a terrifying roar erupted from the darkness behind him. The floor trembled, and suddenly the entire manor shook violently. It felt as if the house had come alive, and a primal fear surged through Emily. Just as everything seemed to blur, the front door flew open with a deafening crash. A gust of cold air swept into the room, extinguishing the nearby candles and plunging them all into deeper shadows. A figure materialized in the doorway, a tall, commanding presence clothed in stark silver armor, glistening like a beacon of hope. "Step away from her," the figure boomed, the voice loud and possessing a strength that felt almost celestial. Emily squinted against the sudden brightness. There was something familiar about this warrior, but she couldn't place it. Everything felt surreal. Mark's grip slackened slightly, confusion flickering across his face as he turned to confront this unexpected intruder. "Who the hell are you?" Mark spat, eyes narrowing. The armored figure stepped forward, removing the helmet to reveal the face beneath. Emily gasped. "Dad?" The words slipped from her lips in disbelief. "Is that you?" Her father stood there, transformed but unmistakable. The years had altered him, and he wore a fierce expression that sent a rush of memories crashing into her. He didn't belong here. How could he be here? Mark's eyes widened. "You? I thought you were dead." No," Emily stammered, wrapping her arms around herself. The ground felt like it might crumble beneath her feet. How? I don't understand." "Enough of your games, Mark," her father growled, stepping menacingly forward. "You've twisted my daughter's life long enough." Mark recoiled, and for the first time, the dark manipulator seemed unsure, vulnerable. "Your daughter," he retorted, face pale. "You think she's safe? She doesn't know what she's getting into." "Stop talking," her father interrupted sharply. "You've been playing with forces that should not be toyed with." In that instant, Emily sensed a shift, a rectification, a dramatic shift in the narrative. Suddenly, the shadows gathered more closely, pulsing with life. A hissing sound filled the air, a chorus of anguished voices rising against the walls. "What have you done?" she cried, grasping her father's arm for support. "What is happening?" "I didn't know how far he'd go," her father said, voice low and grave. And then came the truth, as shocking as the darkness that coiled and whispered around them, like a storm ready to break. The Ashford legacy isn't what you think. It's built on blood. Sacrifices have been made to keep the family alive, to keep the darkness away. It hit her like a punch, the weight of it suffocating. And as Mark looked between them, the fear in his eyes overshadowed by rage, the whirling shadows pulsed closer, the truth unraveling before them all. Emily felt the ties of loyalty fracture. The room echoed with whispers. Secrets she had thought buried resurfaced, shifting the ground beneath her. "Tell me you didn't," Mark uttered, disbelief twisted in his frown. But before anyone could respond, the shadows lunged, twisting, snarling, engulfing everything like a riptide. As the darkness surged toward them, Emily's heart raced, her mind screaming in chaos. She realized she was teetering on the edge of something vast and terrifying. And just as the shadows enveloped, everything slipped away. Screams mingled with whispers, the world collapsing around her. And then, nothingness. The darkness swallowed them whole. Emily felt a grip of panic clenching her throat. Shadows lunged forward, swirling like a tempest. Her heart raced, wild and frantic, drowning out the chaos around her. "Emily!" Mark's voice rang out, desperation etched deep in his tone. "Stay with me!" But she couldn't. Everything felt wrong. The floor trembled beneath her feet, and she fought against the encroaching shadows, the air thick with dread. "What's happening?" She looked around, searching for her father, for anyone who could make sense of this nightmare. But those familiar faces twisted, flashing in and out like broken signals. Then suddenly, a blinding light exploded through the darkness, casting a glow that revealed the shadows recoiling. Emily squinted, breath catching in her throat. It was her father, radiant and fierce, standing tall against the chaos, like a guardian from another world. "I won't let him hurt you," he shouted, stepping forward, one hand raised. As the light surged toward Mark, there was a flicker in his eyes, a moment of doubt. Just as he seemed about to falter, laughter erupted from the shadows, deeper and more insidious than before. And then everything changed. The ground shook violently, a deep rumble reverberating through the walls. Emily fell to her knees, cradling her stomach, fear curling in her gut like a snake. The shadows twisted violently, merging and separating, creating a whirlwind of darkness. It was as if the manor itself was screaming. Then, with a heavy crash, the ceiling above erupted, splintering into pieces. Debris rained down around them, forcing Emily to shield her face. And there, amidst the chaos, from the gaping hole in the ceiling, descended a large object, spinning, shimmering, a family crest, the Ashford emblem, broken and twisted. As it landed, the ground shook violently again, but this time it sent pulses of energy through the room. Mark stumbled, his hold on Emily faltering. The crest emitted a blinding light, illuminating the entire space. Cutting through the shadows like a knife, Emily squinted, shielding her eyes. When the light dimmed, a figure stood there, tall, majestic, framed by the remnants of the crest. A woman with regal bearing, dressed in flowing white robes, her hair a cascading waterfall of dark waves. Emily felt the air shift. This was not just any woman. She felt drawn to her, recognition striking like a thunderbolt. "Mother?" Emily whispered, shock paralyzing her. Mark's face contorted in disbelief. And then something darker flashed across it. "No!" he hissed, shaking his head violently as if denying a wound. "You can't be here." The woman's eyes locked onto Emily's, a depth of sorrow swirling within. "Emily, my child, there are truths you do not yet understand." Her voice was soft, but powerful, a soothing balm in the raging storm. Mark stepped forward, fury igniting in his gaze. "You abandoned us! You left us to deal with this darkness alone." "Silence," she commanded, her voice resounding. "You are the one who summoned it. You think controlling it protects anyone? You don't even grasp what you've done." Emily felt the weight of her mother's words, each one striking home like arrows. But before she could respond, the shadows erupted again. Everything surged, invisible forces colliding like a tempest unleashed. "Mother, what are you saying?" Emily cried out, desperate for clarity amid the chaos. But as her mother opened her mouth, the room twisted, and a deafening roar erupted from the shadows, drowning out her words. In raw fury, tendrils of darkness wormed through the air. Reaching for Emily, aiming to pull her under, Mark rushed forward, desperation in his eyes, but the shadows were quicker. They lashed out, wrapping around him, hoisting him high into the air. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he screamed, panic burning in his voice. "Mark!" Emily cried, extending her hand. Then the unthinkable happened. With a jolt, time seemed to freeze. The sordid memories and emotions tied to her marriage, the trust, the love, everything crashed violently beneath the weight of revelation. Mark's form twisted, contorting into something monstrous. His face contorted in agony as the darkness enveloped him completely. I was protecting you," he shrieked, the words echoing like a desperate plea. The room erupted in a flash of light, blinding and profound. Just as quickly, everything turned dark once more. Silence enveloped her, thick and suffocating. When the light flickered back into being, Emily gasped. Mark was gone. Empty space where he had been, leaving nothing but a hole in the darkness, a silence that resonated through her soul. But it was the eyes of her mother, now filled with anguish, that struck her hardest. The truth exploded in her mind, relentless and unforgiving. Nothing was as it seemed. Not the family legacy, not the love, not even her own history. The shadows whispered around Emily. "You must choose," they hissed, echoing, wrapping tighter. "You must decide who to trust and who to betray." For the first time in her life, she felt utterly, profoundly alone. And in that crushing solitude came a dawning realization. The war for her place in this twisted legacy was far from over. It was only just beginning. Emily felt hollow as she stared at the empty space where Mark had stood, a vortex of grief and confusion swirling within her. The darkness throbbed around her like a heartbeat, pulsating with sinister energy. Her father's presence brought a flicker of hope, but doubt gnawed at her thoughts. What was truly happening? "Mother," she said, heart racing, "where have you been?" The figure before her shifted slightly, her gaze fixed on the remnants of the crest that pulsed with a faint light on the floor. "I've been trapped, Emily," she said, voice steady, but filled with an ancient sorrow. "Trapped within the legacy, bound by fate." "Bound by fate?" The words stung like venom. "But you abandoned us! I fought to find the truth!" Her frustration spilled over, sharp and biting. "I didn't abandon you," her mother replied, her voice rising with passion. "I did what was necessary to keep the darkness at bay. But—" She paused, glancing at the shadows swirling close. "It is relentless, all-consuming." Just then, an agonizing scream echoed through the halls, piercing the eerie silence that enveloped them. Emily's heart raced, fear clutching her throat. "Luke!" she shouted, panic seeping into her every word. Without a second thought, she turned and ran toward the sound, propelled by love and desperation. Fear propelled her onward, her feet moving fast down the shadowy corridor. "Luke!" she cried, her voice echoing through the dark. "Emily!" came a whisper, soft but frantic, drifting from the nearby drawing room. It was unmistakably Luke. She pushed the door open, her heart pounding against her chest like a drum. The room was a chaotic mess. Tables overturned, furniture scattered like fallen soldiers. And in the center, Luke stood, bloodied and terrified, surrounded by a ring of shadowy figures, their forms slithering like smoke. "Get away from him!" she screeched, rushing forward. But before she could reach him, a figure emerged from behind Luke. An unknown presence cloaked in black pulled him close, its icy hand gripping his small shoulder. "Stop!" it hissed, voice like nails scraping on glass. Emily's breath hitched. A chill washed over her. "Who are you?" she demanded, inching closer. It felt like the very walls of Ashford Manor were closing in. Then, just as the figure turned slightly, the light flickered on and she gasped. It was Katerina, James's once loyal servant, a woman she thought was gone forever. But there was something off about her. Eyes burning with an unnatural glow, a malevolence that felt tangibly wrong. "Embrace your destiny," Katerina said, her voice smooth and chilling. "You're one of us now." "Us?" Emily felt her heart drop. "What do you mean?" Suddenly, the shadows roiled, and a blinding light burst forth, illuminating Katerina's face. Then came the chilling truth like thunder. Katerina was tied to the family legacy, deep in the web of ancient curses and dark rituals. "All those whispers, those secrets, they're about you, Emily," Katerina cackled, madness dancing in her eyes. "You're not just an Ashford. You're the key." "No," Emily gasped, the revelation clawing at her mind. That can't be true. Katerina grinned, her eyes gleaming with madness. Oh, but it is. You've been marked since birth. The powers within you, unstoppable. You can control it. Our kind can shape the future. The rush of confusion broke around her, streams of horror and disbelief flooding her thoughts. Everything she thought she knew about her family, about loyalty and love, shattered with Katerina's words. Behind them, the door swung shut, sealing them inside with the shadows. The laughter of unseen spirits echoed in the corners of the room, feeding on the tension. As the walls closed in, Emily glanced at Luke. He whimpered, eyes wide with confusion, looking between Emily and Katerina. Without a word, she bolted forward to shield her nephew. The shadows writhed closer, but she felt something within her stirring, a flicker of strength mingling with dread. Emily, it's time to choose, Katerina taunted, the shadows thickening around her. Join us or lose everything. The weight of generations pressed down on Emily, truth and loyalty soaked in betrayal. Would she fight this family legacy or embrace the horror hidden deep within her? Just as she was about to respond, the shadows